Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a fascinating exploration, looking into Jeremiah chapters 10 through 12.
That's right.
Think of it as, well, a way to get insights into some really old views on faith, leadership, and, the kinds of challenges societies always seem to face.
Yeah, these chapters are quite a window, aren't they, into a world grappling with things that honestly still feel relevant.
Definitely.
We'll be touching on warnings about idols, what happens when a core agreement, a covenant gets broken, and some really raw thoughts on, well, justice and suffering.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. It's quite interconnected.
Okay, so our goal here, our sort of mission for this deep dive, is to really pull out the key insights. What were the struggles people faced then, and maybe what still resonates with us today?
Makes sense.
All right, let's jump in. Chapter 10. It starts with this incredibly vivid picture of idolatry. Almost sharp, isn't it?
It really is. Chapter 10 just grabs you immediately. It describes how idols were made back then, almost, you could say, sarcastically.
Yeah, how so?
Well, it details someone going out, cutting down a tree, a craftsman shaping the wood. Then it's all decked out with silver, hammered thin from Tarshish, apparently, and gold from Upaz.
Right, so not cheap materials. Real effort involved.
Exactly. Considerable skill, time, resources, fastening them with nails and hammers so they don't wobble.
But then the text just pulls the rug out, doesn't it?
Completely. All that effort, and they're powerless. It compares them to a scarecrow in a cucumber field.
Just standing there.
Just standing there. Cannot speak, it says. And they must be carried because they cannot walk. It's almost comical in its description of their helplessness.
It really highlights the absurdity. They need humans to even move them.
Yes, that satirical tone is very strong. It's not just saying they don't work. It's showing how fundamentally silly the whole concept is. They can't hurt you, sure, but crucially, they can't help you either.
It's a direct challenge, then, to where people were putting their faith.
A very direct challenge.
And this is contrasted sharply with the description of the Lord, right?
Massively. The chapter shifts and declares, "There is none like you, Lord." Very clear, very direct.
It emphasizes his greatness, his mighty name. Asks, who would not fear you, O King of the Nations? It sets up this huge gap between the man-made, immobile idols
And the living God. Yet the text describes his power, the earth quaking at his wrath, nations unable to endure his indignation. He's the creator, established through wisdom and understanding.
not some static object you have to prop up.
Not at all. This is the source of creation itself.
Which makes following the idol seem, well, the text calls it stupidity, foolishness.
It does. It says that path leads nowhere, that the idols themselves will eventually perish.
And mentioning Tarshish and Upaz, the specific places the silver and gold came from, what's the significance there?
I think it grounds the idols firmly in the human world. Trade, craftsmanship, tangible materials.
Compared to the descriptions of God's power.
Exactly. Compared to making lightning for the rain, bringing wind from his storehouses, the scale is just completely different. It highlights the manufactured versus the inherent.
Makes sense. And the chapter ends on a pretty dark note.
It does. It mentions an impending siege, a direct consequence, the text implies, of turning away from the Lord.
And Jeremiah's personal feelings come through too, don't they?
Oh, very much so. There's this personal lament from Jeremiah himself. He's distraught about the destruction, the scattering of his people.
And he blames the leaders?
He points to the leaders, yeah.
Yeah.
The shepherds have become stupid, he says. Their failure led the people astray. You can really feel his anguish.
It really brings home the human cost of it all.
It does. It's not abstract. It's deeply personal for him. So it really pushes you to think, where do we place our trust? What are we elevating, maybe without even realizing it?
Okay, let's shift gears then to chapter 11. The focus here is very much on the covenant, the broken covenant.
That's the core theme, yes. This fundamental agreement is falling apart.
What was this covenant exactly?
Chapter 11 lays it out. It refers back to the agreement made with their ancestors after they came out of Egypt. That key moment. All right. And the basic command was simple. Listen to my voice and do according to all that I command you.
And the promise.
The promise was profound. So you shall be my people and I will be your God. It's more than just a contract. It's like a relationship binding.
With responsibilities on both sides.
Absolutely. Which is why breaking it is so serious. The text talks about a curse for disobedience.
Not just a minor penalty.
No, it's framed as a severe consequence built into the agreement itself. And the text stresses that warnings were given repeatedly.
To the forefathers and to the current generation, too.
Yes. Listen and obey again and again. But they didn't.
Why not? Does it say were there like pressures pushing them away?
It doesn't detail every social pressure, but it paints a picture of, well, stubbornness, a deliberate turning away, returning to the sins of their ancestors.
Which involved other gods.
Primarily, yes, worshiping other gods, specifically mentioning Baal. This was seen as a direct violation, a conspiracy against the covenant.
Baal was a major figure in the region, wasn't he? Associated with fertility, power.
Exactly. So, worshiping Baal was a huge departure from the exclusive loyalty demanded by the covenant. It represented choosing other cultural or religious paths.
And the consequence for this breaking this conspiracy.
Impending disaster. The text is blunt. Behold, I am bringing disaster on them which they will not be able to escape.
Wow. That's final.
It is. And it adds that even when they cry out for help, their cries won't be heard. It suggests a point of no return has been reached.
That's heavy. It makes you think about foundational trust in our own time, doesn't it? Social contracts, institutions. What happens when those break down?
It's a relevant question. And the imagery Jeremiah uses is powerful. He talks about the sheer number of altars to other gods.
How many?
As many as your cities, he says. As many as the streets of Jerusalem. It shows how widespread this turning away was.
Not just a fringe thing.
Not at all. It was pervasive. Then there's that image of the green olive tree, something naturally fruitful and vibrant.
Yeah.
Being set on fire, its branches broken. A symbol of potential destroyed by their own actions, their evil.
And it gets personal for Jeremiah, too, in this chapter.
It does. Towards the end, it reveals plots against Jeremiah himself.
Because he was delivering these warnings.
Exactly, for prophesying against them. He compares himself to a gentle lamb led to the slaughter, unaware of the danger.
So he's facing backlash for speaking truth to power.
Precisely. His personal fate gets tangled up with the nations, and he prays for justice, which is a very understandable human response to that kind of betrayal.
It really highlights the risk involved in challenging the status quo.
Definitely. How do we react to uncomfortable truths? It's something to consider.
Okay, so moving into chapter 12. The tone shifts again, doesn't it? More towards reflection on justice, suffering, these big, timeless questions.
Yes, chapter 12 starts with Jeremiah almost wrestling with God. He asks directly, why do the wicked prosper? Why do the treacherous live so easily?
It's the age-old cry, isn't it? It seems unfair.
It is, and Jeremiah is raw about it. He sees people who talk about God, but God seems far from their hearts, yet they're doing well.
Well, he's suffering for trying to do right.
Exactly. He contrasts his own fate with theirs, and even asks God quite intensely to drag them off like sheep for the slaughter. It shows his deep frustration.
It's very vulnerable. How does God respond to that?
Well, the initial response focuses on the consequences of the wickedness that Jeremiah is seeing. It leads to the desolation of the land itself.
So it affects everyone and everything.
Yes, the land mourns, the plants dry up, even animals and birds are snatched away.
Yeah.
It shows this deep link between a society's moral health and its environment.
That's a powerful connection. Then there's that metaphor, running with infantry versus horses. What's that about?
Ah, yes. That's God essentially saying to Jeremiah, if you're finding these challenges hard like running with foot soldiers in a relatively safe place, how are you going to cope when things get really tough? Like competing against horses or facing danger in the treacherous thickets by the Jordan River.
So it's a warning that things are going to get much harder.
It seems to be. A preparation for greater trials, perhaps?
And it gets even worse for Jeremiah personally.
Yes. The chapter mentions betrayal even from his own family, his brothers. They've cried out against him.
That must have been incredibly painful. Talk about isolation.
Absolutely. It just deepens that sense of injustice and highlights how far the societal decay has reached.
Then God expresses his own sorrow.
Yes. There's this lament from God about his forsaken house, his abandoned inheritance. He uses these really strong images.
Like what?
Comparing his people, his inheritance, to a roaring lion against him, or a speckled bird of prey that other birds attack. Things that were cherished have become hostile or targeted.
Wow, that's heartbreaking language.
It is. And the image continues with the vineyard being ruined, the field trampled by many shepherds, likely foreign rulers or bad leaders, until it's completely desolate.
Total destruction.
Pretty much. And then that other metaphor, sowing wheat but harvesting thorns.
Meaning all their effort is pointless.
Exactly. Fruitless labor. Actions that produce nothing good, maybe because, as the text suggests, they haven't taken the seriousness of the situation to heart.
But it doesn't end entirely there, does it? Is there any hope?
There is, actually. The chapter and this section concludes with a promise. It speaks of eventual compassion and restoration.
For Israel.
For Israel, yes,
Yeah.
but interestingly also for their neighbors if they learn the ways of the Lord.
Hmm.
It broadens the scope.
So reconciliation is possible.
It's presented as possible, but it's conditional. It requires a real change, learning God's ways. But for those who don't listen, the warning of judgment remains.
So that pattern continues. Consequences for actions, but always the possibility of turning back.
That seems to be the underlying message. It's complex, stern, yes, but ultimately holding out the potential for restoration.
Well, this has been quite a journey through these 3 chapters. A lot to think about.
Absolutely.
We've seen that sharp critique of misplaced faith, putting trust in things with no real power.
The idols, yeah.
And the deep significance of covenants, of foundational commitments, and what happens when they break down.
The consequences are severe.
And then that very human struggle with justice, with suffering, with why things sometimes seem so unfair.
Jeremiah's laments to really bring that home.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Thinking about these ancient concerns, what might be our modern-day idols? Things that command our attention or loyalty but maybe don't offer real substance.
That's a good question.
And what about covenants? What fundamental agreements or trusts in our world feel strained or broken today? It seems these old texts still give us a lot to chew on regarding some pretty enduring human challenges.